welcome to another episode of the CPGGUYS podcast. Our hosts, Sri Rajgopalan, Peter V.S. Bond, and Brian Gildenberg explore how brands and retailers engage consumers in an increasingly digitally driven world. And now, here are the CPGGUYS. Hey everyone, welcome to the CPGGUYS podcast, where we explore the omni-channel digital journey of brands and retailers. It's Women's Month here on CPGGUYS. Every year in November, we feature only female executive startup founders and leaders from CPG brands and retail on this podcast. This is episode 1, actually, of the series for 2023. I'm your co-host, PVSB, and when I am not podcasting, I'm the Partnership Acceleration Lead at Flywheel Digital, the leading managed services company that helps brands grow their e-commerce business. Joining me today is my co-host. He's the third CPG guy, but by no means the third wheel, but he is the third leg on the stool because the stool doesn't stand up unless you have 3. Of course, I'm talking about the host of the Gildenberg Omni Comment, host of the CPGGUYS Fast Forward podcast, and of course, managing director of Retail Cities North America. I'm, of course, talking about Brian Gildenberg. Brian, hey, how you doing?
I'm doing outstanding, Peter. How is your world going up there today?
Well, I'm still kind of getting over the dismal failure of the LA Dodgers in the playoffs. You as a Red Sox fan.
By the time this podcast airs, it'll be much later than this, so people are going to think you're really struggling. But
I may struggle all the way until pitchers and catchers report, Brian. I'm pretty kind of depressed about that.
Yeah, I had a relaxing baseball season that the Red Sox allowed me to give up hope in July. So,
well, I think when they lost the season opener, they were mathematically eliminated from the playoffs at that point, weren't they, Brian?
No, they did not achieve my 81-81 prediction. I'm bummed out about that. By the way, it's a great start to Women's Month to do a lot of good sports bantering. We're doing our thing here. We're doing our part.
So I think the thing to focus on that is positive, speaking of Women's Month, is obviously the incredible success of our third partner, Sri, vis-a-vis his daughters. His elder daughter, Ria Raj, is a wonderful recording artist. You can follow her on riaraj.com, link in the digital liner notes of this episode. And his younger daughter, Lara, is one of the finalists in the exciting K-pop competition Dream Academy that Hybe and Geffen Records are producing on YouTube and Instagram. So a link to vote for her and see what she's doing. But my God, those two have got more talent in their pinkies, I think, than you, Sri, and I have all put together, Brian. They've got some mad skills when it comes to music.
Yeah, well, we've both been in the house and heard them, so yeah, I think we can both validate that. So
I think so. Well, anyhow, thanks for taking time to join me today, Brian. I know we're going to have a really exciting conversation. Before we get to our guest, I want to remind everyone, please subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform: Apple, Spotify, iHeart, Audible, whatever it is, please do that. But if you use Apple or Spotify, make sure to give us a rating because it helps feed the algorithm, makes our podcast more findable by people. And of course, leave a review because we want your feedback on what you like, what you're interested in hearing more of, so that we can tailor this podcast to our audience's interests. We certainly want to express how honored we are to be rated for 2 years running the #1 CPG podcast in the industry, at least according to FeedSpot, the leading podcast ranking authority. And we're very pleased to have join us now, not only in the top 30, now the top 20. We've got CPG Scoop, CPGGUYS Fast Forward, which you host, Brian, and of course the FMCG guys. And actually Chartable now has us in the top 50 marketing podcasts in the nation. I can't believe we're in top 50. That's kind of amazing. But I also want to say, on a serious note, we love the recognition, but we do this because we love to do it more than anything else. But on a serious note, we want to say how incredibly honored we are to be formal sponsors of Nextup, formerly known as Network of Executive Women, whose mission it is to advance all women in business. We are afforded quite a number of memberships as being formal sponsors, and we're giving them away to women entrepreneurs, small business owners, or even women who are at companies that may not be part of Nextup, but would like to avail themselves of the incredible networking and educational resources. If you're interested in finding more out about this, drop us a line at contact@cpgguys.com. We'll see if we can slide you one of our memberships so you can get access to this really valuable resource and learn more about what Nextup has to offer. Links to our podcast, our sister casts, and of course, our landing page on Nextup. That makes us official, Brian. It's like nextupisnow.org/CPGGUYS. Like the fact that we have our own extension, our own microsite, that means like we're real. We're not just making this up.
Clearly, because there's no possible way you can do fake stuff on the internet.
No, that's a good point. That's a good point. All right. So enough of our repartee. Let's get to our guest. She is actually the sixth guest to come from the iconic CPG manufacturer, the Coca-Cola Company, where she has spent the entirety of her professional career since graduating from Rollins College down in Winter Park, Florida. In her 2+ decade tenure with Coca-Cola, Dagmar Boggs has worked in a number of key leadership positions across North America, including global and national customer and retail and food service, franchise leadership, and operations. Earlier roles include North America Chief Customer Officer, President of Global 7-Eleven, VP of Global Burger King, VP and Global Chief Customer Strategic Capabilities. And of course, the most recent position that she was in was the Chief Customer Officer of North America. At the beginning of this year, though, she was named as President of Food Service and On-Premise. And if she isn't already busy enough, she serves as a board member of Retail Industry Leaders Association, Food Marketing Institute, and of course, what we already previously mentioned, Nextup, formerly Network of Executive Women. Please join Brian and me in welcoming to the podcast Dagmar Boggs. Hey, Dagmar, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
We are great. This is such a terrific day. We're so glad to have you help kick off Women's Month here on the CPG Guys. It's a big period of time for us. We love being able to feature incredibly inspiring and successful women, and we know we're going to have a really great conversation going on. Before we get to the questions that Brian and I prepared for you, we'd love for you to just give us a little bit of an overview of what your role is leading food service and on-premise. What does that mean for the Coca-Cola Company?
Well, great. So first of all, thank you for having me with you guys today. I look forward to having a great, fun conversation as well as educational. So what I do is I represent or I lead an organization within North America. Its primarily focus is to build relationships with our top food service and on-premise customers. So it's a customer-facing organization. So think B2B. We're not talking about going directly to our consumer. So we partner in long-term relationships with both traditional food service. So think, Wendy's, Chick-fil-A, Chipotle, very traditional, to all the way to the spectrum of on-premise. So think theme parks, think movie theaters, think Home Depot. So anywhere we would say it's off-premise. So at Coke, we would say there's two big areas of business. One is at home. So the product you go and buy and you bring back to your home. And the other one is off-premise. So everything that's basically off-premise, traditional off-premise food service, or non-traditional, let's say, like I said earlier, like a Home Depot, we have teams that partner with those customers and with all of our brands. And that can be both in fountain. So think about going into your local convenience store and getting a fountain beverage, all the way to bottle can. So if you're ordering Domino's pizza, right, they would deliver that in a bottle can product. And once again, all those occasions are away from home. So my team within North America works with all those customers that are away from home occasions. I hope that makes sense.
That's a great description. And what particularly resonates with me is that your business is heavily involved in the iconic and genius invention of the Coca-Cola Freestyle, which is my favorite food service product because I like Minute Maid Zero Sugar Pink Lemonade. And the fact that I can go into so many off-premise locations and being able to go and get exactly the flavor I want, it just makes me incredibly happy. I was so excited when that came to life during the time that I was at dunnhumby, and I have been enjoying it ever since. So I'm glad to know that that's a part of what you're doing.
Every senior Coke person I talk to, Dagmar, I bequeath you your new flavor, which is when you take the Coke Zero Lime and you mix it with the Coke Zero Vanilla, you get something that resembles Coke Zero Key Lime, which is my movie theater beverage of choice. So
Oh my gosh.
I give that to you as focus group of one research. I've offered that to your company before, but I haven't secured the licensing arrangement for it yet.
Oh my God. That's crazy. It's one of my favorite dispensers. It's very unique technology.
Oh.
It's micro dosing. And what it does, it allows you, the consumer, to either create or get one of your brand, old standard favorites. And it just resonates so well with the consumer because you get to interface with it. The other part though, it phones home. So we have used data from these freestyle dispensers to help us inform what the consumer wants. And we can bring that out in other packages then. It's a great machine.
A product innovation, a font of knowledge. I love that.
How about that?
Yeah, it's a fountain of knowledge, so to speak.
That was going to happen.
Yeah, our old mutual friend Mel Landis actually reliably informed me as well that the lime flavoring that comes out of the freestyle machine is the best sort of lime flavoring you can get. So I have inside info on this. I got the inside dope. So
you sure do. That's impressive, Brian.
This is great. Well, listen, thank you, Dagmar, for that overview. And the digital liner notes of this episode will include links to your LinkedIn profile, the Coca-Cola Company's LinkedIn page, and of course, the corporate site, so our listeners can learn more about you and your company as our conversation ensues. So let's get to the questions. I'm going to kick it off, and I think getting a good background on your experience would be really helpful. Can you walk us through your career journey and particularly important pivotal points in your time at Coca-Cola that you thought were exceptionally helpful in developing the skills that are allowing you to perform in your role now?
Wow, it's a big question. I'll do my best here. So what I'll say is when I started with Coke, I came into an organization that's called Fountain. Today, that is called Food Service and On-Premise. So it's almost like come full circle. But I started out in sales. And in that area, what we're known for is truly value creation. We partner, we sit around the table. It's not just about beverages, it's about the total business. So that really shaped my thinking around we're almost like business consultants. We understand the totality of our customers' business. And since we play a big role in beverages and in their profitability, we bring insights. They want a conversation with us. So I started in Fountain. And the irony is I did not have a very straight line to where I am now. And I get asked this a lot because I mentor a lot of men and women. They always ask me, especially the younger ones that are coming into Coke, it's like, tell me how you mapped out your career. I was not that strategic, but what did drive me in my career was really about getting different experiences and learning different things. So as an aside, I'm a child of immigrant parents. So I have a little bit of a striving nature. So it's like, I got to go learn the next thing. So I was able to move from traditional Fountain, just managing big customers, to bigger portfolios, to bigger teams. And from there, I navigated over into the international space. And so I started managing international customers, and which was great, all within the traditional food service space or Fountain space. And that's a very unique skill set because it's outside of the core of our business, which is called bottle can. This is delivered by our bottlers. This is still Fountain. But I learned a lot about strategic selling and consultative selling. So I went into international, learned how Coke operates internationally, which was extremely helpful because it's sometimes very different than how we operate in North America, but it is a global footprint and there were so many good things to learn. And then I had a very interesting, a very sad, dramatic thing, but it was pivotal in my career. My husband passed away and I had two small children and I was doing this international role. And I basically told Coke, does it make sense? I can't really travel internationally now. Let's look at other opportunities where I can be more North America based. And great, I had an opportunity in North America. And I had an opportunity in corporate. And here's the funny part for it. This is Women's Month. This will resonate. I had an opportunity to be a chief of staff or an EA for one of our executives on the corporate side. And I went to interview with him. And it was kind of white noise until he said, and you travel when you want. And I never in a million years thought I would be an EA for anyone or chief of staff, but I thought I can do that. So, because my kids were very young. And So I did this role, and it was one of the pivotal roles for me because I never, I really didn't see myself being a chief of staff or EA, but I learned so much about how decisions were made at the corporate level. I learned how decisions were made on the international level. And I also some very crazy behavior at senior levels, which those are stories for another time. So in this,
Oh, come on.
oh my gosh.
That's what the listeners are tuning in for.
You think the higher you go there, well, anyway, we'll leave it at that. But so in that role, I did everything from working with McKinsey and doing strategic analysis and projects, for our global customers and capabilities, all the way to doing name cards for big industry events, for seating charts. So it was a very interesting role, but I learned a ton. And then I got tapped on the shoulder to come back in to lead some large customers again. So after I stabilized my family, I was ready to re-engage into a line role. That was more of a staff role, which I learned. I'm not crazy about staff roles. I want to lead something. I learned that about myself. So I went back and they asked me to lead our global Burger King business. And at that time, it was over 90 countries. Now it's much more than that. They've expanded quite a bit. So I came in and built a team on that business. And without getting into too much detail, you asked about a pivotal point, and I always share this with folks. They think, the journey to leadership roles is marked with failure. And it's not so much the failure, it's what you do with that failure. And I lost a big piece of business in Latin America, which, oh, by the way, is the highest per caps in the world for Coca-Cola. And it was very explainable why it happened, but it was very, very hard for me. And I had to make a decision. What do I do with this? And so, I learned because they had new owners, they had new private equity owners. We learned then what was very important. And after that, we designed strategies to win every single negotiation around the world after that. But it was really a big learning for me because I was used to having success. So ran that business. And guess what? Speaking of freestyle, they are the first large customer that launched freestyle. My team sold that in. So that's a full circle there. And so as I learned the global footprint and how to drive performance within a global customer, I decided that I'm a late bloomer in many ways, that I wanted to go get my executive MBA. And so work with Coke. They said, absolutely. But at the same time, I got tapped on the shoulder of, hey, you've done global Burger King. Can you do global 7-Eleven for us? And they are, by units, the largest customer out there by a number of locations. And they're heavily situated.
And arguably the most profitable units in the system. We all know that single serve is really where the margin exists in the portfolio of your products.
Absolutely. But I didn't take it. And so Coke was a little surprised. I said, look, I can always get another job at Coke. I felt pretty confident about that. Let me get my education. They said, okay. So I went and got it. And then a year in, they asked me again. And I took it and I learned a lot. And that's where I learned the other side of the business, which is bottle can. So there was a transition between doing traditional food service and fountain and crossing over to bottle can. So I ran that business globally. And then there was a leader, his name is Jim Dinkins, a dear friend of mine, but also a mentor and sponsor of mine, created a very big role called franchise leadership and national retail sales. These were before two standalone roles, and they brought them together. It made a ton of sense, actually. And I crossed over. So I literally crossed over from the very traditional food service fountain side over to the retail side. And I was immersed then with working with teams that sold and partnered with our largest retailers. So think Walmart, Kroger, Target, right? So it was the traditional, and it's delivered by our bottlers, which is our franchisee is the bottler at Coke. And so that role is fascinating because it's very strategic. It's revenue growth management. It's planograms, it's resets, it's aligning the bottlers. We have 65 of them, and aligning them nationally with national programs with key customers. So it was a big job. The first 6 months about killed me as I was learning some key levers of that. And then once I got it, it was awesome. It was an incredible job. So another pivotal point, right? Learned something completely new, very exciting, very dynamic. And you had to learn to influence at very senior levels, both within the bottler system as well as with the customer. So from there, just like any other organization, Coke has been through a series of reorganizations with different leadership. And from there, I've had a succession of interesting roles. At one point, we were reorganized to what we called big zones, and we collapsed food service and bottle can customers into regional zones. And we decided, there's a better way of doing that. So I actually was a president for one of those zones. Then they decided, well, let's take our top food service and our top retail customers and put them under one organization. So that's when I was chief customer officer. And we realized that worked. It was really well, but we still have so many customers that really weren't being touched. So there was a decision made with new leadership that we needed to reinforce, reimagine, and strengthen our food service and on-premise business. And so help stand up that organization this year. It's over 350 folks. We built out new capabilities, and it's been very exciting times. Very proud to be here. It's like coming home for me. And I absolutely love this space. I love the brands. I love the people. I love our customers. And I guess there's a little crazy side of me because we're in constant negotiation, and I like games. And so to me, the strategic part of this is a lot of fun. So that's a long-winded way of telling you my career journey, but I thought it's important for your listeners to understand that there wasn't a straight line. I was just picking up new experiences and skills along the way. And I got knocked down a couple of times, but I used those lessons into the next role, and it was very helpful for me.
That's awesome, Dagmar. Thank you for the rich story of how you've developed. And I'm going to ask a build question on this a little bit, because I think you talked about some of the attributes of you as sort of like a worker, right? Like some of the things that you did as an individual, overcoming challenges and being more concerned with experiences than with a traditional vertical career path. And obviously, being able to turn a tragedy into an interesting journey as well, career-wise. But leadership-wise, what are some of the attributes that, if you had to reflect on your leadership, and I know you well enough to know that talking about yourself as the world's greatest leader is not necessarily your comfort zone, but if you had to reflect back on you as a leader, what are some of the attributes that you think serve you well as you lead some of these teams? I mean, you mentioned that leading a team is more interesting to you than a staff role. So what about you as a leader do you think really works effectively or has worked effectively for you in your career?
Yeah, I think, and I love that question because I'll share with you what I've learned as a leader. When I was younger in my leadership roles and, I had teams, I was still centered on, the optics of how am I doing? Am I being successful? And that's not a leader. What I learned is, and what I found where my sweet spot is and aligned with my value system is, how do I bring out the best in talent around me, wherever they are in their continuum of growth, right? And so I've had different levels of sophistication of leadership teams. And you have to be a really good listener. You talk less the higher you go. That's what I would say. Those leaders that want to get around the table and just pontificate and share their point of view, I don't think they're as effective. And I think your engagement is not as strong.
They become podcast hosts, by the way, Dagmar, not leaders.
Well, I'm just telling you, I wasn't going to go there, but the fact that you did, just those consultants, though, they like to talk. But anyway, so what I've learned is be a really good listener and to be a servant leader. I was talking to Jennifer. She's our North America president. She was trying to lock me in for, she goes, "Are you going to stay here for a while?" I go, "Absolutely." And what I told her, and it came naturally, I'm here to serve. I am here to enable my leaders. Now, I'm brutal with them. You talk to any of my senior leaders right now, and they're very senior. I give them very direct feedback. It comes from a place of compassion and wanting the best for them. And they know that. They actually come back, circle back. And what's giving me that feedback, that makes sense. And I see them become their best selves, and we get better results that way. I'm a believer that getting results is very important. You have to put points on the board, but you don't leave dead bodies along the side of the road. I'm a big believer of that. And also a believer of giving second chances. So I have a relatively new leader who's promoted 2 levels, and he's very good technically, and he's trying to learn. He comes from a school that's very important for him to show well. And I'm teaching him, it's not about you at all. It's about your team. You're a leader of leaders and now. And how do you support and enable them to be their best? It's not about you. And so that's what I've learned in my journey is the higher you go, you listen less, you find ways to remove barriers and enable and direct coaching and feedback. And I also have, I have top to top relations with the CEOs. And the other part of my job is to be contemporary with information and points of view, because that's what they expect from Coca-Cola. They don't just expect our product, they expect us to have a point of view and to be thinking with them. So I think you have to be very contemporary and always learning about what's happening now and in the future. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
No, that's terrific. Thank you. And I'm going to follow on with Brian's question about being a leader. To be a leader, you have to have people to lead. So that necessitates, and you alluded to it in your answer to his question around people being at different stages of their career, of their expertise, and having a good team around you is something that every leader seeks to achieve. As you're building teams, so you mentioned the fact that this group that you're now leading, you had a chance to put it together. What do you look for when you're assembling a team, particularly when you're building it from the ground up? What kinds of skill sets or behaviors are you looking for in people that you think will lead to a successful dynamic that will drive performance?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I spent a lot of time on that at the beginning of the year. So first of all, structure always follows strategy. So the fact that our strategy was to rebuild or reimagine a food service and on-premise organization meant you had to have particular skill sets, because we lead in this space, but to continue to lead means you have to have a certain thinking style, a growth mindset. However, what I was looking for, it's funny, I had a conversation with the CEO yesterday, one of our customers. It's the traditional leadership used to be very hierarchy, and I'm not about the hierarchy. I'm looking for a value system that aligns with the organization and with me. And my value system it's for bringing out the best in our people and in our customer relationships. And it's not about, I want you to be successful in my leadership team, and you will be successful, but it's about doing the right thing with integrity and being the smartest one around me. So the people I did choose on my leadership team are smarter than I am. They know things I don't know. And I have an ability to get those team members talking amongst one another. I am not the sole arbiter of decisions. I actually set up the environment where they are talking with one another, bouncing ideas off each other. And I didn't come up that way at Coke. I came up very hierarchical. And I've built on my leadership team high trust. So in other words, you will help each other out, and the high degree of business acumen. And then we have a little fun too. So it's probably one of the last two leadership teams that I've built have been a lot of fun, because I've shifted the power to say, now I have ultimate decision rights. I very seldom use it. I let them get there unless they are stalled. But I like how they push and pull on each other to get to a better outcome. And so I was looking for that. I wasn't looking for someone, the leader, never have all the answers. They have all the answers, and they need to work with each other to get the best outcome. And what I do is, when I hear that, I go move the barriers, or I go get the resources to help them do that. Every now and then I'll be
I'm thinking of Doris Kearns Goodwin's book, A Team of Rivals, describing, I believe it was Lincoln's. Was it Lincoln's or Grant's?
Lincoln.
It was Lincoln's cabinet. But yeah, exactly that. People that have different views, letting them work it out, and then breaking down the barriers to make the decision that they've come to enabled. That's great.
Yeah. And just to build on that, it's interesting, because we've just stood up this organization. Just saw dolphins out there. Anyway, I'm at a beach. You might have to redo that. I know. It's like, dog.
Squirrel.
I know. I had put it out in the universe. I wanted to see a dolphin. I just came through. But what's interesting is we put this leadership team together, and we then, built up this organization, and we are actually, the behavior and the audio, they all line up. And we just got our engagement scores, a formal engagement. We blew everybody away. We're a new organization, because it's this new culture of, we're here for each other and for the customer and for the best outcomes. And that's fun, right? How often do you get to do that?
Yeah. And speaking of outcomes, now let's turn our focus away from the leadership and more on the business side of things a little bit. So look, you entered the food service industry at a really interesting time. I think the pandemic For all the talk about how the pandemic changed the world we usually talk about, which is retail and commerce, I think the pandemic completely inverted the economics of a lot of the food service ecosystem. So, there are very few places that are in your customer base today whose economics are even remotely the same as they were in 2019, given the changing nature of delivery in those businesses, the relationship for a restaurant between its delivery business versus its on-premise business, the change in the economics that come with all of that. How have you been adapting to that, and how do you stay abreast of sort of the trends in your space? What are some of the ways that you help you and your team stay on top of things?
Yeah, it's interesting. The channels reversed, right? The at-home or the retail channel was on fire during the pandemic, and the food service, especially the full service, right, or the entertainment, just shut down completely. And just to kind of give you context, in food service, if you had a drive-through, you were winning. And for a lot of our customers with drive-through, you think about that, it's lower labor cost. You don't have to open your dining room. It's, the throughput was amazing, and they became very good digital. A lot of our large customers got into the digital space because they had to. They knew they eventually would, but right now, if you don't have a digital platform, you are way behind, as you know. And so those that were either building it already like pretty sophisticated with it were winning. And so what we've learned is everything we do at Coke, whether it's on the retail side or on the food service side, is anchored in consumer behavior. And as you've worked with us, Brian, you know this. We have so many insights on the consumer and where they're going, what cohort they belong to, what occasions they visit. And so we've gotten we've always been pretty sophisticated in this space, but we are leaning more deeper and deeper into where do we think that the consumer is going? And then we share that and align. I was talking with a CEO of a key FSR player, and he was sharing with me, because we don't even have the data insights you have. Can you share what you guys are saying? So it goes back to my earlier comment. We sit around the table, or not sit around the table. We join the table of our key customers and share with them what we see where the consumer's going. And then they look at what they see, and then we come together and build solutions. So we are very much looking out. And to build on that, I have a part of my organization is an embedded, dedicated commercial organization. So it's insight, it's channels, we have an in-house economist. And we added more resources here to build out for the future. Our value bundle today is very strong, and that's what was expected from us. But it's not enough for the future. So right now, what I'm looking at in this space, which is a core muscle in retail, is the RGM piece, revenue growth management, and understanding between mix and day parts and digital. How do we help our customers with that? And if you listen to what I'm saying, it's nothing to do with beverages, right? It's about how we help build their business, because beverages are still a big part of it, but we're a strategic partner, which is a fun part of this business.
Let me remind our audience that today, Brian and I are speaking with Dagmar Boggs, president of food service and on-premise at the Coca-Cola Company. Dagmar, let's talk about Nextup. We want to know a little bit about your involvement. You are now a board member. We'd love to know specifically with respect to this organization, what's interested in you, and what are you focused on to help advance the cause of women in business?
Women in business, or women in general, is a passion point for me. So it aligns with my core value systems and belief. And I'll tell you why. I mentor a ton of women. And what I've learned is women are still trying to find their voice around the tables. And many times if there's a job available and, a man has 50% of the skills and the woman has 50%, okay, let me go 70%, 70% of the skills, the man will raise his hand and say, I can do that. And the woman will go, oh my God, I don't have all the skills. So there's a mental model that I've observed, it's been around, and I work a lot on that because I believe in a leadership position, I should have a role in helping others. And so it's always been a passion point of mine. So I got involved with, it used to be new, right? Network Executive Women, which is now Nextup. Oh my gosh, in 2010, 2011. And just started going to their meetings, and they have great regions. And then I was invited to join the board, I think in 2015 or 2016, and just had a series of leadership roles on the board, right? The finance committee, the audit committee, strategy meeting. And now I'm the incoming chair. So I'll be chair as of January 1st. And I'm so excited and bullish about the impact of Nextup. We've been around a little bit over 20 years. We have over 20 regions where you can locally come together and build community and good content. It's a great support system. We have great, what I would say, capabilities as where you can actually sign up for courses and classes. So I love what we are doing. We just rebranded to Nextup, which means wherever you are in your career, wherever you are in that continuum, we will meet you and build community and help you with your skills, which has been very exciting. And we have a new CEO, Lisa Baird. She is absolutely amazing.
Phenomenal. We love Lisa.
She is. I actually did an interview with her right around when she started, actually, for the podcast, and it was just a fascinating conversation. Her background is amazing.
Oh my gosh, she's absolutely amazing. She's absolutely the right person at the right time to lead Nextup into the next generation. Right? It's very nice. So yeah, so it's a personal passion point, and what motivates me is making a difference or making an impact, and I believe Nextup is. So I'm very proud to be a part of that organization.
Yeah, I would argue that one thing you made a point of saying that men will apply for something when they think they have about 50%. I would lower that to 10.
Well,
and I would say that you are being way too kind. And more often than not, I see women doing it like when they've got 9 of the 10 things. I'm like, we got to change that mindset. And that only comes through the kind of work that Nextup does. Allies, mentors, sponsors, all of those can help change that dynamic, because it's important that we have a workplace that is much more representative of our general population.
Well, and I think too, it's not just incumbent on the women putting themselves in the roles. It's incumbent upon the people that are making the decisions around the hiring as well, and to seek out female candidates that may not have all the experience, but may have some of the key attributes of it, and because I do think, look, everybody's got mental models. And I think a lot of the barrier sometimes is that you won't think the extra half second about what are especially from an internal hire point of view, like who are the internal candidates that are available? And, am I really thinking through the experience set of everyone? And am I really thinking through a female candidate may not have all the attributes for the role, but say, hey, look, nobody has all the attributes for the role. Can they develop into it? I think there's a lot on the leader side. That's a problem here as well. It's not just the applicants. So,
No, I think that's right. I think it's, unconscious bias. It plays out, and just, building awareness is great. I had a leader that was very pivotal in my career, and I was put into a role that I knew nothing about. And the thing he said to me, he goes, look, experiences are great. Don't get me wrong. He goes, but I look for skills and attributes that are transferable. I can teach you the business. And that's exactly what he did. Now, if we had that mindset, most leaders default to, I want the experience because it makes my job easier. I put them in, plug and play, and they go. And so to have the courage and taking a little bit more time to bring those leaders with potential, right? And then teach them the mechanics of the business. That's great. Teaching leadership doesn't come naturally for some, but if you've had those attributes, teaching the business, you can teach anybody, I believe.
Yeah. One, I think too, it's also, we're getting to a point, I've had this conversation a lot in the retail media and digital commerce space, where the roles that you need for the future, there just aren't people that have those backgrounds, right? Because you're combining together things you've never done before. And there's a propensity in the unconscious bias thing to not always think through, well, look, no one's perfect for this role, right? Because there is no such thing. So what are the things that we're willing to teach people versus what are the things that we're not? And I find often that the things that you're quote unquote unwilling to teach tend to be things that are more associated with male career paths and rather than female ones, just as an observation I offer to the world, because I think that's oftentimes where you run into trouble. And I think some of the skills that executives bring to the table around, to your point, just the ability to lead anything, is something that gets sidelined for, massive experience in global travel, or, I've run a sales organization or something like, things that just tend to unfortunately still have a slight gender bias to them. So
that's interesting you said that, because I agree. The other thing that's a little bit of gender bias, I think, and we could probably debate this, I think men are taught to take risks, right? And I think women tend to be a little more risk averse. And, you get to a certain level of Coke and they run you through assessment through certain attributes. And the feedback I got from the corporate psychologist was, you have a very high risk tolerance and you might need to be careful because Coke does, well, they do, but mine was much higher. And I remember thinking, well, that probably is non-traditional for a female. I've always had, a great sense of courage, but that's one thing I would love. I get asked that a lot. It's like, how do you build courage? I go, you've got to go try things and be willing to stumble and learn from that, move back on, but don't give up. And that's one thing at this level, you got to be able to take some risks. The higher you go, you got to be able to make the call.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, instead of another sort of more, commercial question, which is the role that you have and that Coca-Cola has in food service leadership is anchored on refreshing beverage satisfaction for consumers. How are you thinking about driving that both for your consumers and for your retail partners? How are you bringing those together in the most compelling way?
Well, I tell you, we first of all, it's category expansion. So we're playing in all categories now. That is from dairy to refreshment to rehydration. So I think Coke's done a very nice job. We are actually dabbling in alcohol now, as you know.
Yes.
So category expansion really plays a big role, and also by occasion. And so we're working on that, and also innovation in delivery. So new cooler innovation with sensors and phone home, like what we're doing with Freestyle. So part of our delivery is around not just the brands and the categories and the products we play in, but how do we then interface for the future? And digital is huge. And so how do we continue from a commercial standpoint to draw through that, what our CMO Shakir says, the moment of truth, right? It's one thing to have a great brand and great brand love, but if you're not participating in those categories and showing innovation in categories, and then being at the point where the consumer wants to purchase, you're not going to win. And that's both food service and in retail. And you'll see on the retail side, based on our consumer insights, and our goal is always to attract that next generation, you see a ton of innovation now around our flagship brands, right? We have this whole continuum called co-creations, and that is designed by that next generation, or it's been designed by AI. And we come in and out with that with platforms that resonate with that consumer. So I think we're going to continue, company's been doing really well. We have a commitment both in North America and globally around innovation and attracting the next generation. You'll see a ton of innovation in that space.
Thank you. Let me close our conversation today thinking about the industry we're in and people who are particularly interested. I know Brian and I are particularly passionate about the CPG retail space. We love it. It's why we do this podcast. We love talking about it. It keeps us occupied. And obviously, you've found a very rich career in it. What advice do you have for women who are looking to get into the CPG retail ecosystem in terms of them forging a career for themselves?
Yeah, I think, what I love about CPG, think about what that C is about. The C is the consumer. You got to love that space. You've got to be a consumer yourself and understand the power of brands. And if that is interesting to you, and I know when I wanted to work at Coke, because I wanted to be with the number one beverage brand, it was very exciting to me. So if you're curious about the consumer and you enjoy brands, it's a great space to be. And whether you're with Coke or other CPG brands, it's a wonderful journey because you get a great education and great experiences in everything: insights, brand building, customer, supply chain, RGM, finance. You get a holistic experience, but it's anchored in the consumer. I always laugh with my team. I've got some cousins of mine that live in Germany, and they do great. They live in the Black Forest. They have this manufacturing plant and precision parts that they sell over the world for Bosch and for cars and stuff. But it's this little part, and it's the most boring thing, right? I don't get excited about that. And so you have to have a little bit of excitement about what you do. So the brands and the consumer, because this is going to the consumer. If you like that space, you have a great career in CPG, whatever company.
I want to remind our audience to visit thecpgguys.com, where you can find all of our content. Our episodes are organized by subject. So if you want to learn more about retail media, food and beverage, insights, loyalty, whatever it is, just go there and enter those tags and you can find the episodes that are directly relevant. And of course, if you think you or your company has some thought leadership to contribute to this ongoing conversation we're fostering in this community, drop us an email at contact@cpgguys.com and let us know what you think. Maybe one day you can appear on the podcast and be a guest speaking with us about it. And of course, when you're at cpgguys.com, at the top of the navigation bar, you'll see ratings and reviews. Please, please, please leave us a rating and review. We really want to know what you, only if you give us a 5. No, not really. You give us any rating you want. You don't have.
I'll do that right now.
Exactly. We like 5. 5 is Brian, you like 5. I like 5. 5 is our favorite number.
I don't know that there's another number.
I don't think there is. There's 5. Just go right to 5. But of course, seriously, we want to thank certainly the 26,000 LinkedIn followers that trust us to both educate and entertain them. We're really grateful that you've chosen us as one of the many sources of information, education, what have you, about this fascinating industry that we love talking about. Dagmar, I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to speak with us. This is really great. And Brian and I really want to wish you well as you begin your tenure as the chair of the board for Nextup. You've got a really great team there led by Lisa. You also have some great board members. I think Brian and I may know one particular director at large who I forget what his name is. It escapes me, but we're so incredibly honored to be a part of that organization and the work that it's committed to doing. And want to thank you for taking time today to talk to us. So thank you so much.
And thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate it. And thank you for being a member of Nextup or a sponsor. We love that.
Oh, we love that. All right. Well, let me turn to Brian before we close. And Brian, I'd love for you to read back what you thought some of the most salient parts of Dagmar's commentary that you want to highlight from our conversation today.
Well, one, Dagmar, it's great to see you again. And it was all salient. So I could just repeat back the whole podcast. But that's not really a summary. I think there was a couple of things that struck me. And I'd probably put them into 2 buckets, one of which I think is, I'll start with the business stuff first, because I think the way, and I've known this about you for a while, but the way you approach customer partnership, almost every good thing you mentioned about customer partnership really had very little to do from a starting point with trying to grow your business. It was really about, I love the way that you put it, where you said you join the table of your key customers. You're not at the table, you're actually joining the table. You come together, you build solutions, you bring your insights, they bring theirs. You know that oftentimes in your industry, in your side of the world, you've got quote unquote better insights than your customers may sometimes, but you lead them with grace and you lead them with intelligence to build sort of joint solutions. You talked a lot about where growth is coming from, which is about category expansion and day part and occasion. I think so much of the growth in the world over the next few years is going to come from not knowing the demographics or psychographics of our consumer one notch better, but understanding the context that they're in, when they're shopping, where they are, what they're doing. Context is going to be so much more important. And I think in food service, it's always been more critical. So I think there's a lot of learning that our conventional world can draw back from the food service ecosystem as it tries to sort this stuff out. I also think that, as we discussed quickly, the inversion of the economics and the whipsaw inversion of the economics of the food service industry. I think successful food service operators have a lot to teach retailers about how to manage actual complexity, not fake complexity. So I remember once years ago, we had a big CPG company was trying to learn e-commerce. And so I brought in an executive from a movie studio who said, yeah, you know what? 3 years ago, we were selling Blu-ray DVDs for $35. Now we're selling Netflix downloads for 35 cents. That's a change in business model. Like, you selling stuff on Amazon isn't that interesting to me. And I just thought it was good perspective for the entire industry to sort of get grounded on. I think the leadership stuff that you talked about, I think tied really nicely to that. You talked about the combination of high trust and high business acumen, and it sounded like those two things really looped together for you, which is that I trust people who know what they're doing, in a shocking surprise from a leadership perspective, but also, the wisdom and the ability to let people try, let people fail, and know that, especially if you're doing the example you used of a 2-level jump, that someone is going to have to learn and fail a little bit in order to grow into the role that you need, and to have the architecture around that and the patience to be able to lead that. You explained to me why I'm not a leader today, which is that you talk less the higher you go. I thought that was good learning for me. Thank you. And the phrase that I'll leave with about the value system that aligns, about doing the right thing with integrity, but you had one phrase right at the beginning, actually, which said, I see them become their best selves, and then we become better that way. And you don't leave dead bodies on the side of the road. So, I mean, I just thought that was a great one-sentence summation of how to lead. So thank you for sharing. I really appreciate it, and it was great to see you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, I'm going to lead us out of this conversation by thanking Dagmar again. Brian, always great to have you on this journey. And to our audience, we're so grateful, as I've said many times during this episode, that you choose us to educate and entertain you. We look forward to speaking with you on the next episode of, wait for it, the CPG Guys podcast. Goodbye. The content in this podcast episode is provided for general informational purposes only. By listening to our episode, you understand that no information contained in this episode should be construed as advice from CPG Guys LLC or the individual author, hosts, or guests, nor is it intended to be a substitute for research on any subject matter. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by CPG Guys LLC. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. The views expressed by CPG Guys LLC do not represent the views of their employers or the entity they represent. CPG Guys LLC expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, or inability to use this podcast or the information we present in this podcast.